Welcome to Talk the Fray, your destination to discuss movies, Hollywood news, and the occasional TV show. I'm your host, John Mugabe, making sure you never watch movies alone with new episodes releasing weekly. On today's pod, we'll look back on the first half of 2026 and give out some superlatives while also discussing some really exciting narratives waiting for us in the back half of the year. We were talking about all this because if you haven't heard, movies are back. Very clearly, right? The domestic box office is having literally the strongest year it's had since pre-COVID, so that's 2019. For a hard number, I believe it's 5.25 billion. That was where they were at June 21st in 2019, and we had never reached where we have this year, which was 4.46. So the numbers are back and get up. The energy, the feeling, the vibe. If you're someone who's a fan of movies like me, there's never been a time in the recent history where people have been so tapped into what I'm watching, right? The movies I'm watching are not just my cinephile activities, but it feels like a pop culture engagement time. And so it's really exciting. And I want to take some time to just shout out some of the movies that made that possible with some really good superlatives. So, of course, spoiler warning for some of these movies that are coming out. But with no much further ado, let's just get straight into it, right? So, starting off, we're going high school superlative style. We're going with most missed. Most missed to me means take me back to the moment that movie came out, maybe that for opening weekend, the ensuing weeks. The conversation was I just want to go back to that conversation and exactly what it felt like. And nothing accomplishes that much like the drama directed by Christopher Borgli. That movie was such an exciting, going into it, you knew this was the start of a really fun year for Robert Pattinson and also that really fun year for Zendaya too. They're both going to be following each other in a lot of movies this year. And this is their first time really doing a rom-com, which we have been starved for as a culture. And it works without a hitch. It's really great. The twist is amazing. It's such talking to people at work and being like, okay, so what would you do if your significant other had considered school shooting? What would you do there? And people are baffled. It's an impossible situation, and we see that absurdity on great display in this movie. It strikes at deep vulnerabilities on so many levels. As an American, right, our very public endemic of school shootings, right, it is something that the entire world is very aware of. They think we're cowboys. They think we take guns everywhere and shoot. And it's an embarrassing thing if you ever get into a conversation with somebody, maybe you have a different diaspora or from a different nation. It's kind of the American joke, and it's a really unfortunate and sad one. And this movie touches that insecurity at such a clinical level, which I think is really interesting. The fact that it came from a very premier foreign actor, an English actor in Robert Pattinson, and a foreign director in Christopher Borgli, right? They're able to really come at it from a distance perspective and showcase, like, one of the lines of the movie is like, isn't this an American issue? Right. And it's it's very relatable on that level. The experience is very evocative of something that a lot of people unfortunately have dealt with, but it's really great that way. The relationships, right? The fact that, like, hey, I want to be in the cool couple. I think that's not even just related to couples, but just in just life. I want I want the optics of my relationships and people I surround myself to be very cool, or whatever that means. So when you're seeing Charlie spiraling his life out of control because his wife doesn't necessarily look as cool anymore, his incredibly beautiful, hot, attractive Zendaya wife, yeah, there's something wrong about her that she's given his friends the ick. And it's something that is deeply unsettling to anyone who, like everyone in this really online democracy we live in, we care what other people think at a level unlike ever before in human history, and the drama touches on that so well. And then, just the individual horrors we keep on unknown to ourselves, right? Can you ever truly know a person? That's really the big takeaway from this movie, but it just, like, hopefully, and luckily for me, it's not as bad as like a preemptive school shooting, but there are things that we just don't want to see from ourselves exposed to literally those who we know and we expect to love us the most. It's not necessarily a safe space. And it was almost a voyeuristic nature to be able to see this horror happen, and to other people, this incredibly charismatic actor and incredibly charismatic cast, right? outside of our main leads, Lanheim, I mean, that meme went absolutely bonkers. It was a great moment to be able to be at the movies, to be talking. I rewatched it, I had friends rewatch it. I'm gonna miss where I was when the drama came out. Our next superlative is how to make is most disappointing, and that's none other than How to Make a Killing, directed by John Patton Ford. I just want to. This one stars Glenn Powell, Margaret Qualley. We get Ed Harris, and we get Topher Grace. It's a really good cast. It goes with a very traditional Eat the Rich storyline, where Glenn Powell's character is going through his family tree and just absolutely wrecking them so he can get the fortune that he feels like he's been cheated out of. Those stories are in, and it doesn't work, and it's kind of very disappointing to the point where I'm sitting here and like, Glenn Powell, where's the Tom Cruise energy, right? No other movie star that we have today, like a Pattinson, a Chalamet, an Austin Butler, none other can we tie the line directly to who of the past generation or operating now generation, but they've made it already, right? They're going to follow in their footsteps. And it seems to be very clearly communicated by Tom Cruise and by Glenn Powell that, like, that's the duo that we're looking to. And I want to see Glenn Powell step into that Tom Cruise energy, right? Where his charisma, which he has, right? With his ability to play like a leading man, which no one's questioning, right? Just takes place on a cinematic level. Unfortunately, The Running Man and How to Make a Killing haven't landed, right? I mean, I was a big fan of his performance in Top Gun Maverick. I'm a big fan of his performance in Anyone But You. The last thing I think anyone wants in Hollywood space for Glenn Powell to be someone who we get in small doses. I want to see good movies. I want to see his Jerry Maguire. And he has a lot of stuff in development right now, and I'd love to see that. But for some reason, I mean, not just Glenn Powell, him and Margaret Qualley, this was a unfortunate step back for an exciting duo, with Margaret Qualley coming off of a lot of great performances, but notably like her performance in The Substance. Like, these are exciting actors, and they just didn't make it work in a movie that I thought could work for them. The next superlative that we have moving forward is actually this. I had a lot of fun making this one, but most likely to reunite you with your dad. Right. If you've been tapped into movies this year, it's really just two contenders, or we had a very big contender just released, and that was Pressure, a release around D-Day, the story about the meteorologists who contributed to the successful D-Day landings. However, I want to give light to another movie that came out this year, a little bit earlier, which is Crime 101, directed by Bart Layton. Crime 101, that's starring Chris Hemsworth, you're getting Mark Ruffalo, you're getting Halle Berry, you're getting Barry Keoghan. It's star-studded. It's a very well-done, auteur-driven, high-octane, heat-influenced heist flick. And I mean, it was just really exciting to see in theaters. The energy in the heist sequences were very great. Chris Hemsworth is playing crime on the spectrum, I guess, and he does it in a really appealing way. We also get him playing a really pretty underserved, but I mean, like, decent enough relationship with Monica Barbaro, right? This is a dad movie, right? We're not talking Oscars here. We're talking, did you feel it in the soul? Did you have a great time? And I think this was it. And I mean, Crime 101 is the best movie with the MCU star in the leading role since the inception of the MCU. We see Chris Hemsworth carry this movie. It's very exciting. It's very scintillating. And when you look at just the track record, it's not competing against much, right? You go to Oppenheimer, Robert Downey Jr. is not the lead there. He has his clear out in The Last Hour, but that's a Cillian Murphy movie, and that's always going to go down as that. Chris Evans in Knives Out, supporting role to a really great performance by Daniel Craig and a lot of other actors. So I'm really glad we got this movie. We had two MCU guys in there. It was a nice reunion, but zooming out on this year, this movie and Project Hail Mary communicate that Amazon as a movie studio, they can make good movies. I'm really excited to get another studio taking the steps to be a consistent Hollywood contributor. When are we going to see Amazon start winning things at the Oscars? I would love to see that, especially with the upcoming merger that we're going to see with Warner Brothers and Paramount, right? So we need another studio to step into that space. You can still give us high-level blockbusters, but also give us like a little bit smaller stories that are still very good and like had a good script that came in and we had a great time. I'm a huge fan of Crime 101. Now, most likely to be the Oscar darling. I think if you asked around, this would probably be probably the most consensus around this one. But Project Hail Mary, directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. I mean, this was just an exciting movie to experience. I watched this with a friend the first time, watched it with a friend the second time. We all walked out and said, "Hey, man, I love you, brother." Right? The Hope Court is just insane in this movie. And if you look through the list, I went on Reddit doing some casual research, and I'm seeing a lot of Oscar nominations that are going to come from this movie that I think it's just going to rack them up. Sinners was the most, I think, nominated movie last year in last year's Oscar batch. We're going to see Project Hail Mary rack up a lot of awards throughout award seasons. Right? I would definitely say with 10 slots, it's definitely going to get in for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor. I think Ryan Gosling was the first person to plant a flag in that 5-man race. We have a couple of people who are probably clear favorites, counting them out. So Gosling, I think he planted his flag there with Project Hail Mary. The next person should probably do it. Are we going to get someone to do that from The Odyssey? It's going to be very interesting. It's a Matt Damon's movie. Is Robert Pattinson going to come away with the nomination? There's a lot swirling around, but I want to see what type of acting awards this movie can get. It doesn't feel like a unitary all-around one person that Oppenheimer was. So I'd be interested to see if Matt Damon really does get that award season love like Cillian Murphy had, right? But I mean, moving forward, you're expecting Timmy to be in there with Dune 3, Tom Cruise to get in there with Digger. That's 3 potential locks if you're saving 1 slot for The Odyssey. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how that Best Actor race looks this year, but I think Project Hail Mary, if you just run down this list, you have Best Adapted Screenplay. I think that's a very lock. Not to win, but just to get a nomination. The Best Original Score, you have Pemberton with that. Greg Fraser did a great job with cinematography, editing, sound, visual effects. You're going to see this movie it has so much goodwill in terms of what it did for both movie theaters and just individual audiences in terms of how we felt coming out of this movie. It's going to get a lot of awards and it's going to deserve it. And I'm really happy. I've even heard stories that the voice actor for Rocky is going to potentially get some rumblings of a supporting actor campaign, which I would love to see that. I don't know if that's going to materialize, but that just tells you just how much goodwill Hollywood and the voting public have with Project Hail Mary. Our next superlative is most underrated. Now, this is a movie that came out earlier this year I think it was really good. The public didn't latch on to as much as I was expecting them to, but I think it's pretty clearly 28 years later, The Bone Temple, directed by Nia DaCosta. And just for simplicity, I'm going to refer to this one as The Bone Temple, and the prequel to this one last year is just 28 years later, because 28 years later was critically acclaimed in a very heavy way. It came out in the summer. There was a lot of everyone I knew was just rewatching the 28 series, but The Bone Temple brought me back into this franchise in such a huge way, just on the backs of the performances by Ralph Fiennes and Jack O'Connell. Following up his Sinners performance was something somehow more sinister than the most iconic vampire of last year. And Ralph Fiennes taking another step in that conclave era he's in, where he's just the best thing in every movie you see him in, right? I see him in a movie and I feel comfortable, I feel safe, I know he's going to deliver a great performance, right? And I mean, that's exactly what they do. This third act in this movie is some of the most arresting cinema we've seen this year. I mean, we have the subway scene or the train scene with Samson. And then we have the music performance at the end of the movie, which is not just a music performance. It's a lot crazier than that. And I think it's just something which I wanted to sink into my chair in the theater. I was like, what am I seeing right now? But I couldn't look away. And the way this movie wraps up is just so exhilarating. It's so pedal to the metal. I can't praise any movie that didn't get a lot of praise more than 28 years later, The Bone Temple. And now to discuss our next superlative, we have most online. That's pretty self-explanatory. Which movie owes a lot of its relevance or even its existence to our digital age, the internet? For me, there's no other choice than Obsession. Obsession, directed by Curry Barker, came out a little bit earlier this year. And Curry Barker, he himself is of internet fame. He made this movie with the assistance of the reputation he was able to build for himself on platforms like YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, making very funny videos. He himself has even attributed some of the success of like just the individual script framing of this movie is like, hey, I have experience knowing that when I'm in YouTube, I have to grab someone's attention within the first 30 seconds or they're lost. And he takes that same level of care, dedication to draw us into the edge of our seats for so far what's the best horror movie of the year. And it's incredibly exciting that internet has absolutely fallen in love with this movie to the fact that it's the most culturally talked movie it's going to be up until the Odyssey releases. Obsession has a way of just dominating the box office. Right now, Disclosure Day, this most recent weekend, I'm recording this on like the 1st of July, Obsession out-earned Disclosure Day. There have been other movies, right? And we're obviously not talking about Toy Story 5. We love that. But there have been other movies pursued for more adult audiences that have maybe peaked in the moment, but nothing has defined since Obsession has come out. Movie discourse, box office attendance, just nothing like Obsession. Everyone knows about it. We're all praising it online. There's I would say pretty healthy online debate about, we're still talking about, did Nikki fall in love with our guy Baron? And it was really exciting movie that you wanted to watch, you wanted to tell your friends about, you wanted to watch with your friends. And I mean, we can just see the truth and the depth. Like, this isn't an industry plant, right? We're seeing the Obsession everywhere we go. I just saw that Kid Cudi took them out on a concert, brought him on stage. The relevance that India Navarrete has, I mean, people in the streets are praising her performance as like the highest performance just to launch a young female star into relevance. Probably since, I mean, recently it was Chase Infinity, I'm pretty sure, who's had this reaction where every person with the XY chromosome was just like, yeah, she has it. Can we see more of her in her movies? And it's really exciting to see what it does for her career. And I mean, it's just a really great movie that we've been able to experience online, and we owe it to the internet. So I'm glad to give the most online superlative to Obsession. But I want to finish things up with my personal favorite, the best movie. My personal best movie of the year could be nothing else than, I mean, just want to preface this with, it could have been any of these movies. All these movies are such a great class. You can interchange them. It's not really, I believe, this is any better or even more well crafted than some of the other movies we discussed about. But Mother Mary, directed by David Lowery, is probably the most like obscure movie on this list. However, it stars Anne Hathaway and Michaela Cole as respectively pop star, with Anne Hathaway is very believable as, and a seamstress or a tailor, the person who's responsible for making her set costumes. Now, this movie is very honest, very true, is inspired by other pop stars like Madonna. Charlie XCX is actually involved in the, first of all, writing of the accompanying album, which is a great gym listen if you're just looking to get something to crank out weights to over the next 35 minutes. It's pretty good for that. And so, I mean, you have these two heavyweight actresses going at it, right? Tackling a story that David Lowery is no stranger to tackling the supernatural in the movies that he wants to make, right? We have a ghost story, we have The Green Knight, and this is the next one in that lineage of movies he's made where he's interested in what's beyond. And what's beyond has a really interesting way of just latching on to the amazing music, the amazing costuming, and just tackling what's the essence of connection. What's the furthest distance that a trauma can connect you, right? Are you ever truly apart from a person? And we see that explored really well in this chamber piece that also stars Hunter Schafer, a really interesting scene with FKA Twigs. It's just a great movie that seems very singular, that's very led by a director who's in complete control of his vision. I couldn't see me enjoying 26 as much as I have without the amazing performances and the amazing movie that is Mother Mary. You should check it out. I think it's probably coming to streaming soon, but I mean, it's definitely the smallest box office hit on this list, but that movie spoke to me in a way that very few other movies can, about just the earnestness of connection, and I really did appreciate that. All right, we'll be back with the second half of this podcast, talking about some second half projections for the rest of the year. Welcome back to the Talk the Frame podcast, where we're going to go over some second half projections, plus a little movie star watch for the back half of 2026. Releasing this episode about a week or two after Supergirl's come out, let's do a post-mortem on not only Supergirl, but a question I'm asking myself, which is, will the superheroes be okay? I think this is a big narrative going on. I'm personally seeing a destabilization of the trust we have with the superhero movies that are being made, where one, it's hard to truly get excited for something, right? Superman, we have been starved for 13 years for a solo Superman movie, and we've been starved for a good fight, like what feels like 15 years for the Batman Part 2. So there will be excitement for superhero projects. However, just on whole, like I'm just noticing a trend where the people who are making these movies are either very unaware of what we're interested in seeing or just lying to us straight up, right? James Gunn, I want to see him lead the DCU to success, but we all heard him talk about the scripts and how every script needed to be great, finished, and then we go along with the project. We all heard him talk about The Flash as being one of the greatest superhero movies ever, one of the greatest movies ever made, right? So it's a matter where it's like, okay, so much of the superhero industry is excitement and the fact that we want to see these characters on screen because it's a momentous occasion. Some of these characters, like Supergirl, we've never really seen like a wide release movie. Plenty of people have never seen a movie like that in their lifetime. And if you didn't watch the CW show, this is the first opportunity to get a really good look at Supergirl and know that everyone else is seeing it with you. And it was really disappointing. And so I want to see how we move forward in terms of rebuilding that trust. The only way it can really be rebuilt is with consistently great movies. Thunderbolts was a good step, right? Fantastic Four, First Steps was good, but needed to be a little bit better, right? But if you continue to just hit your singles and hopefully hit it out of the park when you get your chance, which I think the biggest chance is coming up with Spider-Man Brand New Day. I mean, this could just be all knee-jerk reactions, and when Spider-Man comes in, makes $2 billion, and the superhero movie industry is back, we could just say that. And that's the hope. So, and I've heard nothing but good things about Spider-Man. The trailer looks great. It feels like we're getting real Spider-Man movies again with no more COVID green screens. And I'm going to be very excited to see this be a good movie. And it needs to be a good movie. The further every single Spider-Man franchise has gone, the worse the movies have gotten historically. So this would be the first one to buck the trend. And I'm really excited to see what Tom Holland could do because it's not going to be Doomsday. Avengers Doomsday, everyone I know, when I talk to them about this movie, they're walking on eggshells about it. They'll tell you, I'm very excited to see Thor and Loki reunite. I'm excited to see Cap back. I want to see Doom in theaters, but no one's saying they think this movie is going to be good. And I think it's a very reasonable apprehension to have because this is going to be the most difficult movie of the 21st century. Avengers Doomsday shouldn't work. You have to introduce every single MCU character back, seemingly. You have to introduce the X-Men universe back. I think we're expecting Deadpool and Wolverine to come back. I don't know how you're going to be able to not collapse under the weight of, one, the expectation, the care that you need to provide to all these characters. Because if you bring back my boy Hugh Jackman, Wolverine, just to like split him in two, like you did Johnny Storm in Deadpool and Wolverine, I'm going to riot. And I think other people will as well. So Avengers Doomsday needs to deliver. I know that we're seeing a steady and familiar hand with the Russo brothers, but this is a very different movie than what you saw with Infinity War and Endgame, because they themselves had Captain America Civil War. You had every other movie in the MCU building up to support this movie. You had Avengers and Age of Ultron. There was so much of a story that was easily followable, that of really successful movies that everyone had seen, that we are going to see play out in this. Loki, we haven't seen him on the big screen until this movie. So it's going to be really interesting to see, like, how are they going to connect the dots between what happened in Loki season 1 and season 2, which were good TV, and what's going to happen in Doomsday. It's going to be really difficult, and that runtime might need to be 3 hours, 30 minutes, because I don't think you have enough time to make this movie work. But hey, balls in your court, MCU. Other than that, I just want to do a quick movie star check-in, right? We have some movie stars, and I love talking. I'm coming from a sports background. I love talking about movie stars like superstars in the NBA. How many are there? Who's really a true movie star? But started off, Digger, coming out from Inuyutu later this year. I saw the trailer right before I watched Supergirl, And the only thing you can get from seeing that many Tom Cruise movies is that he's going for the Oscar. This is going to be a very intense, and I think based on this trailer, the initial Large Digger trailer, is he going to play the Career Achievement Award angle? Right? I mean, which he would deserve. How does he not have an Oscar? Tom Cruise is the big man in Hollywood. He's saving movies, but I'm really excited to see how he leveraged his reputation in that city because it didn't work out for Timothée Chalamet. Timothée Chalamet was probably the last project we saw from a star saying, hey, this movie is my Oscar vehicle. I'm not waiting to see if you guys like the movie and then making a campaign about it. I'm going to absolutely use my stardom to elevate this movie. We're going to make it. I'm betting it's going to be good. And you guys are going to give me an Oscar for it. Or at least that's what my intention is. And for Timmy, it was great. Marty Supreme was a really great movie. It probably might be one of the best solo movies of his career. But we got exhausted. We heard of the ballet comments. And that was really like a Marshawn Lynch on the 1 yard line. But I think there was a point where it's like, yes, Timothée Chalamet, 1, you're young. And 2, like it feels a little bit too much. So I don't think that's going to happen with Tom Cruise. He's a bigger star than Timothée Chalamet, and the industry and the city loves him. So I would love to see him get this angle, but there's a lot of great competition, like we talked about earlier, in terms of who's going for the best actor award. So it's going to be very exciting. The next star vehicle that I'm pretty scared about is The Dog Stars, directed by Ridley Scott. This is Jacob Elordi's chance. This is your time. All right? You can't go over 2 this year. Wuthering Heights, you were fine in it. I don't think the script was the best thing for you. Euphoria is over. You're ready to take that next step in your career and really be one of the huge male stars that we want to see in theaters. I want to see this be a smash out of the park and people say, hey, this guy can drive up box office. The question is, and the fear is, 1, we haven't seen Elordi do this before. We haven't seen him this front and center. His biggest films, or I guess the most relevant films, like Post Kissing Booth, we've seen him perform as Felix in Saltburn, which he was great as. But something that this film required, that film asked of him, which a lot of the other films have been, is for him to be a little bit more distant, someone who's unapproachable, right? Someone who's a mystery, whether it was Barry Keoghan or whether it was Kathy in Wuthering Heights, has to try to understand. And that's not necessarily vulnerable like acting, and that's not something, he's more of a feature than the lead in these movies, and I want to see how he performs as a lead. He got really close to it in Frankenstein, but that's very much so an Oscar Isaac movie, and when you're under all that prosthetic, he does a great job. But I want to see him go for a more traditional role and say, you can build a movie around me and I'm going to lead it to success. So very excited. The person who I'm scared about this movie for is Ridley Scott, who's pretty hit or miss at this point in his career. For every Alien, Covenant, or Prometheus, you're going to get the Exodus movie. You're going to get a Gladiator 2 potentially, which just aren't received critically well and don't necessarily do what they need to do in the box office. I want this to be a great movie. I love all the pieces in this project. I'm really excited about Guy Pearce coming off The Brutalist. You're going to see Josh Brolin, Margaret Qualley. The stars are here. I hope the story works out in a really good way. So I'm really excited and very trepidated for The Dog Stars. And then a more festive, Christmas in July, why not? Ebenezer: A Christmas Carol. I think when people see this movie, you're going to look and say, oh, that's who's playing Scrooge? Johnny Depp is a very interesting choice to make for Ty West to lead this movie as a titular Scrooge character. It might work in a bit of a meta role. I remember when Jared Leto was playing Skeletor in Masters of the Universe. First of all, you didn't see his face, but still, he was playing the villain. And it was something where like, yo, this guy's kind of has it. And for Johnny Depp playing Scrooge, everyone's very well aware of the controversies, very earned controversies between him that took place earlier this decade. And so I wonder if audiences are ready to see him again in a large role. Hopefully it's not like Armie Hammer's return, which I'm not going to watch that movie, and I don't think you will either. But I personally love the Scrooge story. I mean, I still remember the FX made-for-TV 3-part release that was written by Stephen Knight of Peaky Blinders acclaim. But just like a movie that came out very recently in May, Death of Robin Hood by Michael Sarnowski, this might be a dead IP. And yes, it's public domain. Studios will make it because it's cheap. You don't really have to pay all this licensing for it. But I don't know if this is going to put butts in seats. And this is a project that I love. I'm going to enjoy it. Hopefully it's a good next step for the person who gave us Pearl and X. But the story of this year, it's two movies, The Odyssey and Dune Part 3. And these are coronations. For The Odyssey, if this movie works with the sky-high expectations, sky-high waits for tickets, are we about to enter Christopher Nolan's blank check era in a way that we've never seen before? Christopher Nolan's been making great movies for years, and movie studios have been wanting him to make movies with them for years, right? But every single now and then, the Nolan of it all, there's a little bit of a stumble. You have some great movies, then you stumble with The Dark Knight, right? Which, I mean, a lot of directors would kill for The Dark Knight to be their stumble, but still, it wasn't necessarily the best critical release. Then you keep going, Tenet. We gave it a lot of grace because it happened during COVID, but that was a bit of a stumble, right? Imagine the kind of run he would have if those movies didn't interrupt necessarily what was a really good stretch of movies coming from Chris Nolan. And I'm a big fan of Tenet. I actually appreciate The Dark Knight Rises, but just critically and on the masses, you don't really get to say only Nolan fans are going to watch this movie. This feels like billion-dollar movie hype. And if it does, and we follow up Oppenheimer with this level of great movie, we're going to see Christopher Nolan being able to, I think he might be a tide that raises all boats, where directors all the way down the line are able to get the movie they want made, especially with Hollywood scrambling away from tentpole IPs like Star Wars, which wasn't super strong in its outing this year, like superhero movies. The DCU, right, stumbled on a second step, or the MCU, which doesn't necessarily have a super strong direction coming out past Doomsday. So I'm excited to see if Christopher Nolan can say, hey, directors, everyone get in line behind me. We're getting our movies made, final cut privileges the way we want to, and we're going to save Hollywood and take it back to where we want it to be like. Dune 3 has a completely different coronation. The Dune trilogy for Timothée Chalamet, hopefully we're expecting to see we're coming out on the other side of these movies with the fully mature, dating Kylie Jenner, absolutely winning in life. That boy has motion, and I'm really excited for him to move past this franchise and see what he can do in his career. But we want to go out on top. If Dune 3 works as a movie, with the hype, with the connection it has, will it be able to really challenge, and not truly a challenge, it's blasphemy to even suggest, but still be able to get to the point where we say, okay, this is a new generation's Lord of the Rings. This is a new generation's Return of the King. Will it be able to have that Return of the King Oscar success? Will it be able to stick with the culture? Because this is a great movie trilogy that just needs to put that final puzzle piece in place. If you go under just the overall machinations of Dune 3, you have 4 young leads who are all relatively peaking for their careers. Timothée Chalamet, you don't need to explain much, right? He's doing great things consistently in the Oscar race every single year at this point. It's really great to see. Robert Pattinson is having a ridiculous year, and this will be the cherry on top that just lets us know, yeah, he's the best actor working in Hollywood. And then Zendaya and Florence Pugh, I would say it's they're probably the two leading actresses of their generation in Hollywood. Saoirse Ronan, how will you respond to that? I need to see you in a movie again. But I really am excited to see kind of where all these 4 leads take the next step in their career after what hopefully, if executed well, will be a meteoric success, both box office wise and just storytelling wise, and just portraying their skill as actors and actresses for all of America or all the world to see. This is a reset year for Hollywood. Studios are desperately trying to figure out what's going to make them money, and it's not the same things it was 5 years ago. And hopefully what's able to step into the void that these big IP franchises are leaving behind is the reemergence of the movie star, is the reemergence of untapped IP that people are looking for to be able to create stories that feel fresh, that work, and that are very human at heart. I'm really excited to be able to talk about more of these movies with you guys. Coming up next week, we have our reactions to The Invite being led by Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde. I'm really excited to see what that movie has to do, and I'd love to talk about it with you guys. But for now, if you're looking for more content, follow the podcast on TikTok and IG. It is Talk the Frame Pod, all one word. I'm excited to interact with you guys on there. But as I sign off, this has been the Talk the Frame podcast, and I can't wait to see you guys. And let's not watch movies alone. Let's do it together.